Hi there, Vasco Duarte here, your host. I wanted to share a story with you. You know how sometimes Agile just feels like following another checklist? When processes and frameworks feel more important than what we are trying to achieve, and sometimes even like handcuffs. I was talking to a customer of the Global Agile Summit, and he used a term that I kind of stuck in my mind. He said, "I have agile fatigue." And I've heard that a lot from people since then. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. So we started thinking, and at the Global Agile Summit, which is happening this May, we're bringing together practitioners who've actually done that, who've broken free from this, install the framework kind of mindset. We want to focus the summit on real-life, first-person stories of Agile succeeding that inspire you to action. We're talking real experiences, practical solutions, and of course, amazing insights from leaders like Gojko Adzic, who will be one of the keynote speakers, and Jürgen Apelo, who will be one of the keynote speakers as well. If you're ready to leave the Agile fatigue behind, just join us in Tallinn. The early bird tickets are now available at the globalagilesummit.com. And mark your calendars. We will have workshops on May 18th, that's a Sunday. And then the conference itself will happen on May 19th and 20th of 2025 in Tallinn, Estonia. So let's make Agile exciting again. And remember, go to globalagilesummit.com, that is, and get your early bird ticket now. It will only be available until early March, so grab it now. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Team Tuesday here on the podcast. This week we have with us Chrissy Fleming. Hey, Chrissy, welcome back.
Hey, Vasco, thanks.
So, Chrissy, we're going to talk about teams and how sometimes they create their own problems in a second. But for now, share with us, what was the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
This is going to be a bit of an unusual one. The book that has most influenced me is a book called How Toddlers Thrive by Tove Klein. And I'm not saying that the people that we work with are toddlers. I just happened to read it when I had a toddler. And the book goes into our brain and our physical makeup and how these things connect with our behavior. And honestly, I have found that the lessons I learned in this book, I apply universally to the adults in my life as well, because if you can help a toddler handle their feelings, transition to a different task, learn from their mistakes, receive feedback, you can help anyone. And also, I'm sure a good number of our audience are parents as well. So I recommend it for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you said, I think is important, right? Like that because we work with people as Scrum Masters, and of course also you, and when as a product owner, you also work with people. So we are mostly working with people every day, and not being able to tackle that is a huge handicap for us, right? So
Yes.
like having that book that explains, how our brain works, what triggers feelings, what goes on inside us when these feelings are so strong, right? Like in a toddler,
Mm-hmm.
but also adults have strong feelings too. That's not an exclusivity of a toddler, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. And I think if anything, we often forget as adults just how emotional we are. I think we think because we're working in technology, and that we're working in these professional worlds, that we are very professional and that we are a bit more like the machines that we work with, but we're not. It's an extremely human job, and we bring our whole human selves. And especially, if we never did master some of these things, emotion control or being able to switch out of tasks and stuff when we were kids, like it comes up. As adults.
And we should not expect people to behave like machines. I think you said it perfectly. And sometimes we perhaps expect people to be very logical. I often think that there's only one data, and is a fictional character in Star Trek, right? Like nobody else can do that.
Oh my gosh, I love that show. It's true. Nobody is like that. And a long time ago, I took a course on writing copy for websites. And one of the greatest insights the teacher said was, oftentimes just because we're writing for computers, we think we write like computers. So, we won't speak the way that you would speak if you're just talking to someone. And I think too, through my whole career, I've just been finding, as a Scrum Master, as a product owner, as a tech leader, it's all about the humans. We are in a technical job, but it is 100% about the humans you work with, the humans you're building technology for, and the tech is just the means to an end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the humans. As we will quickly find out in the story that comes next, because of course we're going to talk about teams and how sometimes they become their own worst enemies. So Chrissy, tell us the story of a team. Give us a little bit of the context so that we know, what kind of project, how big the team was and so on.
Yep.
And then walk us through how those small little behaviors in the team grew and over time became a problem for the team.
Yes. So I know yesterday was our failure day, but this is another great one in mine. So I was working at Meetup. Hopefully many of you go to meetups still because it's all about the humans. I was new to the company. I had just joined. Came in as a product manager, but also was in the role of leading the team through our ceremonies as a Scrum Master. And they had just assembled the team for us, to focus on the retention of meetups. So you start a meetup group, maybe you get bored with it, maybe it's going, but you move away. How do we keep that meetup group alive? So that was the task ahead of us. Believe it or not, in its 15-year history, Meetup had never considered retention as something they wanted to tackle. And they put together a group of us, some who were very tenured at the company and had been there a long time, and some who were also very new. And I was absolutely the newest one. And early on, we were a new team, but early on, there was this combination of one person who was very hostile and very openly hostile. And it set a tone for the team really not being able to engage in healthy conflict. We did one of two things. There was either unhealthy conflict, and I can go into that in a second, or there was total avoidance of conflict.
Yeah, that's usually what happens, right? Avoidance ends
Yes.
up being the norm.
Yes. And I remember a meeting very early on where we were doing a sprint planning, and I was a new product owner, so I was relying very heavily on the team, and this really set the team back because they said, well, why don't you know this yet? And I'm like, well, because I'm new. I need you to know this until I can learn this. I had no shame about that, but the person that did our QA, I remember her shouting at me and saying, "You're useless. I can't believe they let someone like you do this job." I mean, she made it very personal. Wow. Yeah. Oh, I remember I cried.
That is tough.
Yeah, it was a really rough meeting. And so then you have this moment, right, where you're getting called out and trying to hold yourself together in the moment, or I was trying to hold myself together in the moment. And then you have this whole team that's shocked into silence. And whether they agreed with her, they wished that I knew this stuff, or they didn't, there wasn't this understanding, there wasn't this trust yet in the team to say, like, hey, that's out of line. Like, we can disagree about stuff, but you can't talk to somebody like that. And even after the fact, when tempers calm and you go for walks with people and you try to sort out what everybody needs, she said, I'll never apologize. I said what I said, and I meant it. And so then you're like, oh, well, now I'm dealing with a toxic individual in a team that is now permitting this toxicity because nobody felt we were all so new. So you would have meetings where we would force ourselves to talk about each other's haircuts or like whatever we could do to keep it civil, but we weren't engaging in the real issues that the team was facing, in part because of this toxicity. So it was, and it wasn't just directed at me. She would direct that venom at many members of our team, actually. And
what do you think made the team not want to address the issue? Because I'm sure nobody was happy about it.
Yeah, no one was. I think there's a combination of she was the most tenured person in the team. She was the one that had been there the longest.
Hmm.
And this is an interesting dynamic I have never had before or since in technology. It was an all-woman team, which brings with it when you are a woman working in a highly male-dominated field, as a woman in tech in America certainly is, you come up with certain defense mechanisms. And so we didn't have we didn't have the trust yet. We had to come through our careers with some of our guard up. And so building that trust together, there's an expectation of being nice that gets put on us a lot. And so that willingness to call somebody out when it's just, it doesn't come as naturally. And even when I went to my manager and said, how should I handle this? Her only advice to me was, be meaner.
Ouch.
And I'm like, well, that's not, I mean,
No,
it's one
that's
thing to
just
say,
escalates, right?
yes, it's one thing to say, stand up for yourself, don't tolerate this. We don't tolerate this behavior at this company, which I think was the answer I was hoping she would say. Be meaner is terrible advice. I think we can all agree, right?
Yeah, no, because it just leads to more conflict that is
Oh,
not
yes.
healthy. It eventually destroys the team.
Yeah, it was terrible. So what ended up working, if it's okay if we move on to that, well, partially the team got disbanded for obvious reasons. But before that, what I was able to do was I was able to peel off individuals of the team and build trust one-on-one and build empathy one-on-one and get those. So, okay, we couldn't have a whole team working together yet, but I could build relationships and they could build trust with each other. And so there were certain individuals that we could engage in healthy conflict. There was an engineer who always thought that I was advocating for speed. When can we get that done? When can we get that out? And she was always advocating for, how can we build this the best, right? What's the best way to build this? And finally, I asked her, what her goals were, and she said, I want to be a senior engineer. And I said flat out, do you think I don't care about code quality? And she's like, yeah, I think you don't care about code quality. And I was like, I understand that. I do care about code quality. Do you care about getting what we're building into the hands of our customers, or do you just want to build it forever? And she's like, I want to get it in the hands of our customers. I said, that's great, because sometimes when you argue, I think you don't. So now we understand each other better. So tell you what, for the next couple of weeks, I'm only going to argue for code quality, and you're going to argue for how we can get this out faster. And the real mark of a senior engineer, right, is being able to balance those two. So if you show me that you can do that, I can help you with your path to being a senior engineer. And that worked out beautifully. It was the best conflict that I think I've ever had on the same team where I was having some of the worst. So we ended up arguing for each other's sides. I call it boxing from the opposite side of the ring. And
That's a great metaphor.
right. So it's like, oh, let's just switch. I'll argue for the thing you care about. You argue for the thing I care about. And then we build trust that way because she saw that I had her back. So there was an ability within that team to build trust, but ultimately we had to remove the toxic person, and we did split up the team.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in team dynamics, that can happen, right? Like if the person who is creating the unhandled and unresolved conflict is strong enough, then that will spread. And if nothing else, people will just shy from addressing the conflict. And that puts the whole team in the position where now they're afraid of saying what they think. So they will only say things that they either think have no impact, which basically means we're not progressing, or that the things they say are not at least against the people who are shouting or being aggressive. And that, of course, reduces the IQ of the team to the lowest common denominator.
Yes, if you're playing it safe, you're losing, right? And when people can't engage, there were some very brilliant people on that team, very good at problem solving and empathetic, especially that one engineer I told the story about, wonderful minds. And to just be in a place where you're so unsafe that you can't go out on a limb, or you can't say, what if we tried this, because you're afraid of getting called stupid, or things like that.
Or
Especially
that
when
somebody
people are
will shout at you, even if they don't call you
Yes,
names. Shouting is aggressive in
right?
itself.
It is. And so I also feel I worry less. The older I get, the less I worry about what other people think of me, and the more true to myself I am. And I also think that, having raised 2 kids, I'm much better now. And reading my book about toddlers, I'm much better at just nipping bad behavior in the bud. And
Yeah.
I have a bit of a maternal air, and it pays off sometimes, because it's like, nope, that's not happening here.
Not today.
So not today, not with me. So
Absolutely.
I've gotten a lot better than that, especially from experiences like that. I've learned, just not to let that behavior go, because there's no end to it.
And of course, the book you mentioned earlier in the episode is also a great starting point for those of us who want to get to that point.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all of that with us, Chrissy.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.